Life is art. We're artists. Let's be very clear. We are not experts here. We're not saying that we know the spiritual path. We're not saying that we know plant medicine. We are students of life, doing our best to make experiments to bring forward more authenticity, more gratitude, more orgasm, and more deviance.
Welcome to the Deja Blu podcast, where we believe that living a life of magic can be the default. Join us each week as we playfully and authentically dive into the mysteries of life and explore what it truly means to be human. From spirituality, wellness, and all things taboo, we don't hold anything back. So without further ado, let's let the magic unfold. I am so excited to tell you and let you know that Fluorescence, the modern mystery school that I co-founded alongside Reggie Riverbear, we are finally launching another round of our online container. 7 weeks deep dive into creating the pillars of the temple of our life to allow ourselves to align with a life of absolute magic. This course is action-packed with everything that has supported me and Reggie on our paths to align ourselves with the life of our dreams, and being able to create this space alongside other sisters that are on a similar path of transformation, excavation, recalibration, alignment, and service. This is one of the most transformational spaces that I know of, and so it is truly an honor to welcome you as we are in our enrollment right now. So go to the show notes in the link of this video, and you can explore a little bit more about what Fluorescence is, what it is that we are offering, and it would be truly an honor to go on this journey with you. Hello, you beautiful humans, and welcome back to another episode of the Deja Blu podcast. Now, today's guest, if you're an avid Deja Blu listener, then you are going to be very well versed in this magical human's bars, because she drops them left, right, and center. I like to call her the Codemaster 5000 because she's like a sprinkling system that just hands out codes like, I was like, and everything you think you know about reality all of a sudden deconstructs within an hour and a half podcast. Seems to be what happens every time I sit with Reverend Briana Lynn. And so we have transversed many different terrains over the podcast and different topics that we have covered. And usually when we lead it up to the podcast, it's less about like what we think we should talk about and more so about what's present in our lives and how can we extract the wisdom and the gold and then be able to bring it forward, and to bring our unique perspectives and our illumination and what has supported us on our path. Ultimately, we're not speaking from absolute truths with a capital T. It's more so from our own personal experience and how we have created a balm that has helped us soothe some of the deepest wounds. And from that place, to then create media as medicine and to share it in a good way. Mm-hmm. And so Briana is a mentor, guide, wilderness quest. I mean, literally, she'll just go out into the wild with her white wolf and she takes people to rewild and reconnect. And she's a future best-selling author. It hasn't happened yet, but she's sitting on some gold. And I had to check in with her for a moment. I was like, wait, is this something that I feel like is coming, or is this actually happened? Are you a best-selling author? She's like, not yet. So that's also in the works. Wordsmith, media as medicine muse, guiding women to activate through the Earth Temple and orgasmic oracle and many different offerings and experiences to be able to rewild, reconnect, and to find our tribe and to serve from a good place. And so there's so many different things that you weave in and bring to the space. But first and foremost, she's my sister and a mentor and a guide and such an incredible inspiration in my life. And so welcome back to the Deja Blu podcast.
Thank you, Blue. It's lovely to be here.
And can we just take a moment to acknowledge that Briana has put in an extra effort to weave some red fabric into her hair with red lipstick, gold earrings, and a face tattoo. So I really appreciate the artistry that goes into the adornment process. And I learned about the ancient Egyptians, how they would sit in front of the mirror and it was more so like a ritual of adorning them into their higher selves. And so they would take so much time just to, adorn themselves in a way that allowed their inner riches to really come out. And that's what I really feel from today's look, Briana. The ancient adornment of allowing your heart to be felt through your artistry.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. It's true.
Oh.
It's a delight to get ready for you.
I love it. And so there's so many different topics that we can go on. I trust the direction of today's podcast, but I do also want to focus on one piece that I have started noticing is that the more weirder, unique, outspoken, how much more you shine, or how much more is shared online, how much more the Hanuman heart is just ripped open and he's like, poof, 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 and you just offer it out and all of a sudden the buzzards come and they start picking. The more one steps into the choiceless choice of being in the fullest expression of oneself, also the more outside forces try to dim that light. And I know that you're no stranger to this. And as a woman that is a wisdom keeper that dives into really uncomfortable topics for a lot of people, taboo topics, and brings an articulation and an education and a wisdom into those spaces, it ruffles feathers. So I'm curious, I guess my first question, we're going to go right deeply into it, is how do you self-source your own validation and stop looking for that validation in the place of anything outside of you? And what has that journey been like for you?
Yeah, this is a huge topic, and I'm so glad we're diving into it, Blue. Just acknowledging kind of the recent history that you've had too with the media and projections and this battle, this challenge that we've been in for all beings, but specifically women, and specifically anyone who's not playing by the marginal rules. And what I mean by marginal rules, for about the past 2,500 years, humanity's focus has been on the metrics of accumulation, has been on how much you have, how much power you have, how much you can move. And if you're in a position where you can accumulate more power, more money, more strata, more wives, whatever it is, more land, in the name of accumulation, you can get away with anything. In the name of expression and art, you can get away with nothing. So the same behavior might be expressed by a man who's a CEO expressing about his whatever ayahuasca journey, and it's applauded because he's making money for his company. If Blue goes on and expresses about her ayahuasca journey on an alternative channel funded by alternative sources, she gets taken down by the very people who are also oppressed by the same system that uplifts the white man who's saying his ayahuasca journey helped him make more money. So it's just an interesting conversation to dive into that's very nuanced. And I want to use real life examples from my life to just kind of open up the process of reclamation, the process of reclaiming the rebel. I've recently just been playing with Rebel with a Cause, RBL, Reverend Briana Lynn, and looking at God, G-O-D, the acronym is gratitude, orgasm, and deviance. That the best way that we can express God is to be in full gratitude, orgasm, which I define as noticing the aliveness in our physical body, and deviance, not playing by the rules, not playing by the metrics of accumulation. What happens when we as artists, when we as humans, when we as business people, when we as spiritual people, when we as partners, when we as daughters, sisters, brothers, say metrics of accumulation is not in the front seat of my life anymore? We immediately become deviants. Immediately. So whether you proclaim yourself as a rebel of society or not, the moment you say money isn't going to be my number one driver, you are a deviant in the United States, in the UK, any Western society that has an established university that's paid for by private money. As soon as you decide money is not driving your thing, you are a deviant. So I just want to lay that out there. It's not this like horrible thing where you're running around naked and you're doing all the opposite of society. No, it's literally the moment you decide capitalism isn't the number one thing in your field, you're automatically acting within deviance. We're talking about a world system right now that is ran by the American dollar and funded by the petroleum and natural resource extraction on our planet. We're still raping the planet in order to make the majority of the money go around. So the moment you say, I'm not going to participate in that as my main thing, you're already put in the category of deviant. So for someone like you or someone like me, where art, inspiration, beauty, love, truth, for me, truth, even when it's not beautiful, even when it's not unifying, truth has been my number one. Transparency, truth, tenderness has been the number one in my driver's seat. And it has gotten me more in trouble than anything else in my entire life. Whether it's social trouble or legal trouble or financial trouble, the moment I say that I am married to truth as my beloved, I am interested in truth as it radiates in my bones. I am interested in getting to the deepest core of authentic expression. Most individuals where they're at in their consciousness right now are still ran by survival. How can I put my food on the table? How do I pay my rent? How do I make ends meet? And so I want to be very clear. It is a privilege to activate other aspects of inspiration. Most people on the planet are still operating in survival. That's not a judgment. That's just a what is. As we evolve out of survival, as we activate these levels where we can access other part of our consciousness that isn't just the animal limbic brain, right? This small part that's connected to our spinal cord that keeps us in kind of like this fight or flight, freeze, fawn kind of activity. When we activate something outside of that and say we want to be inspired by something more, we're immediately a deviant. The majority of today's economy runs on a scared, survival-based nervous system. So as we enter into this topic, it's good to breathe, and it's good to notice the parts of our own body that don't want to be attacked, that don't want to receive feedback that is a projection, that when we step out of survival mode and we are met with others who are still in survival mode, it's really easy to get drawn back into that place. So just immediately to notice if something other than only money is driving your field, you will be identified as a deviant within our culture by someone or some group immediately. And then you add any levels of thought that extend beyond just functionality, just survival, expressions of art, expressions of spirituality, expressions of love that are non-normative, that don't follow the metrics of what is you grow up, you get an education, you get married, you pay taxes, you die. Anything that kind of goes outside of that metric system, you're going to be met with resistance from other people in society. That's a given. It's one thing when I work one-on-one or with my group of people and they say, I want to get over this resistance to sharing my message, or I want to get over this resistance to sharing my art. And I always encourage, like, let's get really comfortable and cuddly with that resistance because it's always going to be there. The part of our brain and body that goes into that survival response when we're met with aggression or met with projection or met with ideas that potentially threaten our safety, it's a natural response to go into resistance or fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and to allow ourselves to get comfortable that when we're pushing our own edges and inviting others to push their edge, the number one thing that's going to come up is, can I survive this for ourselves and the people we're asking that of? When we become deviants, AKA money isn't the only thing driving our system. When we become deviants of the economic system, when we become deviants as artists, as creators, as spiritual entrepreneurs, we are triggering people's survival response. So their response is from a place of we are threatening their identity. Identity in the human brain is coded as life and death. So if I'm talking about religion and someone is deeply identified with the religion that I am critically analyzing, I am directly threatening their life. If they have not done the conscious work on how to separate critical thought and feedback from identity, which most humans do not have the emotional intelligence capacity or the education to even have the idea of how to begin to do that. It took me a long time, and it still takes practice for me to not take things personally. When someone says something about me, it goes right to my gut, right to my heart, right? Especially when there's any sort of like personalities or personalization of it, right? Going through a really public breakup for me and having that whole journey narrated by other people's experience of my experience was gut-wrenching. And in that process, finding a softening, right? So much of the journey that I've been on in the work that I share and the work that I embody has been around knowing when to be in that like push forward yang masculine energy and to know when to be in the softening and when to be in the feminine. One is not superior to the other. They each have their place. And in this conversation of like, how do we navigate authenticity in a world that's focusing on metrics and followers and the external, is to have an inner alchemical marriage, is to really, and we've spoken of this before, but to really have a space of gentleness, of softness, of sweetness, of spaciousness within ourselves, and then to have a space of discipline and vision and focus and ability. The process of not allowing others' opinions to affect us is about becoming our own mother and father, establishing our ancestral lineage within ourselves through the mothering, fathering of our own inner children first.
It's every time I'm going through something that is present on my altar, I have then the podcast guest shows up and speaks right into the core of it and illuminates it from the inside out. And today is like the best example of it, because even what you're saying about this is an opportunity to actually start mothering oneself. And yesterday I had my my dreads combed out, and I came back in front of my altar, and it was super clear with everything that has transpired with Gaia and the post, and how I've been receiving it, and also how many people have access to my consciousness, in the sense of, with Instagram, this is our first generation that's ever had access to this many people being able to have access to my internal thoughts or my process. And so learning how to create a discernment, a boundary of what gets access to me in the first few hours of my day as I start the momentum. And then as I came and sat back at my altar, and I was like sitting with my hair, and it's like very damaged hair as it's just been combed out. And the message that came through was, you have an opportunity to reconnect to the mother in you as you mother yourself, and really anchor in now this mother archetype, which is nourishing the soil beneath your feet, cradling yourself when you feel hurt or sad, or that the world is a bitter place. And to actually have that same place, same time, every single day, to sit and be in that mother nurturing role. And so what I decided to do as an act of ritual around that mother expression is do a lymphatic draining massage on my face every morning as part of my morning practice, and then to do a head scalp massage. And it's not about the external, it's truly what it means to live life from the inside out, not the outside in. And I think that what you're saying, or what I'm receiving from what you're saying around, well, you become a deviant if you no longer place money as the reason why you live, or reason why you get out of bed in the morning. And that shifted for me a few years ago. Like, I would say at least probably like 5 years ago, that was when that narrative shifted for me. And I started living for service and loving to love others, and to enrich myself enough so that I could share it with others. And I started noticing, actually, from that place, money would actually more effortlessly start flowing into my life, but because I wasn't chasing it. However, I think that when chasing or like striving towards making money as the reason, then that's living life from the outside in. And the shift into the deviant that you're talking about is to start living from the inside out. Big time. And it's based off of a feeling vibration, as opposed to chasing something that's not already here yet, which is deeply rooted in unworthiness, which then feeds the consumerism on the planet, which is actually continuing to perpetuate the problem that we have. And so basically it's changing gears into a new narrative that I'm going to start living based off of a feeling, and that facial drain or massage, or the taking care of my scalp, is actually more so rooted in, this feels like a nurturing mother to a baby that is taking care of her first thing in the morning. And so how can I do that for myself, so that when the adversity shows up, when the projections show up, when people that don't understand me or have something to say that they've actually never met me, then I'm so deeply nurtured from the inside out that it doesn't permeate anymore. And so I just wanted to reflect that, because what you're saying is touching on points and illuminating them through beautiful articulation that is allowing me to be able to deepen what I have intuitively felt, but you've just gave context to it.
Yay, we love context.
Context is everything now.
Well, it's something. Context isn't everything. Context helps us have a frame. Context is the frame in which we look at something. Context is chosen and context is created. So it's not everything. It's also important to understand that we are creating our frames of reality. We are creating our context. So it's not everything, but it's something important for this moment. And I really am particular with my linguistics more now than ever, because there are a lot of these kind of cliches that are going around, like context is everything. Well, it's like, told by whom to whom? If we say context is everything, and Trump is giving me the context of what it is that we're about to do and march forward, that context is not everything for me. You know, I'm a reflection of my world around me, and my world is a reflection of me. Well, I just met someone who's a pedophile. They're definitely not a reflection of me. They're a reflection of something on this planet that I'm here to help address. So I'm really on these like thought terminating cliches right now, because there's a lot of cultism happening within Instagram. There's a lot of these what I'm noticing, kind of this manifest destiny, which was rooted in white man's burden, the expansion of colonization, specifically in the Americas in the 1800s. We're seeing evangelical Christian terminology reused in New Age spirituality in a way that's very harmful. And those two that I just identified are two of them that actually come from early 1800s evangelical Christianity. The idea that context is everything and the world is a reflection of your spiritual life. These are two very dangerous truth-isms. There is truth within them, but they are not the whole truth. And if they're told to you by someone who's trying to manipulate you and then used to their end, they can be easily usurped and channeled into cultish, self-deprecating, other ostracizing behavior. Part of my work in what has been happening has been deconstructing these ideas of good and bad and dogma. Dogma is the idea that there is an ultimate truth and that there's a way to get there. And so anytime I see them, I'm just like, let's catch that and just unpack it a little bit more. It's not that it's not true. It's just that when we believe that cliche, that thought terminating cliche, we're not actually getting the wholeness, the nuances that are available. And so I want to name some nuances here as we continue in this conversation. We are white presenting women. While I can present as cis, I'm queer identified. I was raised in a lower socioeconomic bracket in a Latino-based population. Didn't acknowledge myself or even realize that I was white presenting until I was in my early 20s. And so a lot of my perspective, and was raised born again Christian, evangelical, non-denominational, and was in a very cultish environment until I was about 18 years old. And the reason why I name this is because so much of what my deconstruction has been is based on that context that I'm coming from. And it's something important to our conversation, but it isn't everything to who I am now. The piece that I really want to name as well, when you or I present our journey in the spiritual path on social media, what people don't see are the hours and the days and the weeks of confusion. From the ages of about 14 to 17, I was in and out of suicidality, deep fantasies of taking myself off the planet, have dealt with depression throughout my life, still to this day deal with high levels of anxiety, which I now call orgasm and have reframed for myself. But the idea that someone is speaking about me poorly anywhere, whoever they are, gives me icky belly immediately. Immediately, no matter how much medicine I sit with, no matter how much meditation I do, no matter how much mothering or fathering that I do, at the end of the day, I'm a human animal who wants to belong. I want to belong to my human family. I do believe we're all one. I do believe that we can all heal. I do believe that if you listen to my heart long enough and I listen to your heart long enough, that we could find a space where we could love each other. I believe that for Vladimir Putin. I believe that for my former partner. I believe that for the Ayatollah of Iran. I believe that if I sat with them long enough and we both shared the authenticity of our hearts, we would fall in love with each other. So when I receive a comment from someone I don't know and who doesn't really know me about something that I've done wrong and that my philosophy is off and that I'm just another narcissist out there promoting myself, the way it lands in my body literally feels like a donkey kick to my womb and collapses my heart and makes my nervous system go down. None of that feels good, no matter how much work we do on ourselves. And I don't want to get to a point where I'm numb to that experience. I want to get to a point where it brings tears in my eyes and has me say, that gives me even more inspiration to love more. That hatred gives me even more reason why I get to go out there and say, I have more to learn. I'm not perfect. We're here in the vulnerability. To be a leader is to be vulnerable enough to be willing to take the flack when shit goes down. That's what a leader is. A leader isn't the person out in front making the brand, looking good. A leader is the person that when shit hits the fan, they're willing to sit there in it. A leader is someone when everyone is talking shit about the person that you know the most, you're willing to actually go to them in person and say, what's actually going on with you? That's a leader. A leader isn't the person who carries the torch and has the best brand and knows what they're doing. That's capitalism. That's consumerist-based capitalism, how it's defined leadership. Actual leadership is the wolf that runs at the back of the pack and makes sure that nobody is left behind. to actually be in this work and sharing our message from a place of art, spirituality, and authenticity takes a type of leadership that says, I'm willing to sit in the shit and be in the shine. I don't want to sit in the shit forever, but I'm not going to pretend that it's shining when it's shitty, and I'm not going to pretend it's shitty when it's shining. I'm actually looking for authenticity. What is authenticity? Authenticity, that juice, that ruddy juiceness is literally, the word literally means to open your eyes and see what is. It's not putting on energetic weight. It's not taking away energetic weight. It's not gaslighting, turning the lights up or turning them down and being like, ooh, it's effects. No, it's literally saying, here is the truth, as close to the truth that I can feel it, think it, and say it. That's authenticity. The closest to truth, because we can never get to the TT with the capital T. We know that, right? But as close as I have experienced it, tasted it, felt it in my bones, here's me delivering it in a way that feels alive in my body. Authenticity is going to have charge. Authenticity is hardly ever fully neutral. But the way that we can bring it through the filter of leadership is with that idea of, okay, what's the directionality that I desire to go in? I'm going to speak my truth with a charge, also noticing the vision that I want to go in. And that's coming back to that idea of yin yang, or that masculine feminine alchemical marriage that's required of the mother and father on the inside. I'm going to be the big daddy and hold my experience and let the mother express herself emotionally, while also being the container and making sure that no one else gets projected on in my process of expressing authentically. Mm-hmm. It's a fucking dance, and it's not easy, especially when we're charged by someone's ideas, projections, feedback, emotion about our artistic expression. Life is art. We're artists. Let's be very clear. We are not experts here. We're not saying that we know the spiritual path. We're not saying that we know plant medicine. We are students of life, doing our best to make experiments to bring forward more authenticity, more gratitude, more orgasm, and more deviance, more availability to be who we are. Because there's 8.1 billion people on our planet, and each one of them is an artist, and each one of them has a religion of one, and each one of them has a cure for cancer that currently on our planet is not in a space where it can actually be fully expressed. My dream for humanity is that every human being realize themselves as the artist, chemist, scientist, astronomer, activator that they are, and have the resources available to be able to express their art in this lifetime. The fullest expression of the spiritual experience is the artist, the one who is living their life as beautifully, as lively, as truly as it is for their body in this moment. And the process of what you were speaking to, the practice of mothering and the practice of fathering, that step one is the internal process. And simultaneous, and I would say step two, is community. We have rugged individualism baked into capitalism. And so I want to name that within New Age spirituality, there's a lot of push for like, you do your own work, you're self-sourced. Yes. And we are mammals. All mammals live in packs, pods, squads. We can't do this alone. We actually cannot biochemically nor nervous systemly do this alone. Find people in your community who reflect back to you the best parts of you. Keep your friends close. If you're getting under attack, call your people. Call your people. Call your mom, call your dad if you're close with them. Get your friends closer. At the times where we start to feel under that attack, it's so vital that we have our pack real close to us, because we also need feedback. Because I got bullshit, you got bullshit. There's stuff that comes up. We've got ego, we've got things, you know what I'm saying? So we got to have our people close to us that can be like, hey, this part of you, let it shine. This part of you, let's refine. This part of you, yeah, you might want to like kill that part. You know what I mean? Like, or integrate that in a different way. No killing parts, but like integrate that in a way, because it's just showing a little bit of colonization, or showing a bit of elitism, or showing a bit, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yes, number one, be self-sourced in your practices. Find the alchemical marriage of the mother, father within. Step two is get your close people closer. Get your intimate people more intimate. Intimacy is vital for our survival. Mm-hmm. It's not a want. It is a need. And I'm not just talking relationships. I'm talking intimacy. I have people in my life who know everything about me and love me anyway. That is a level of validation that no amount of likes on social media could ever give you. Like if Instagram falls and I've got my pack that I can call at any time, or like send a smoke signal to, or whatever I need to do to get them to come to me, That is how we survive this thing. It's not about how many followers we have on social media. It's about the close crew that will ride and fly with us when shit hits the fan. The people who are like, I don't fucking care what they call you on that thing. I know who you are. And you're like crying, but what if it's true? I'm like, no, bitch, I know who you are. Here are the times in your life where I've seen you do this. Here are the times where I've seen you fail and get up anyway. Here are the times where I've seen you show up in relationship when it was hard. We need that. That's not a choice. If you do not have intimacy in your life, you cannot survive the spiritual path.
Mm-hmm. So that was exactly the second thing that I did. So the first thing was going to the altar and reconnecting with the mother within myself and the nourishment of self-sourcing. And then from that place, and once that genuinely was actually locked in, and I was like, then it was an outreach. And what I also was being guided to was, instead of sending energy towards those that do not understand you, go and love the ones that do really well. Like in between moments, just if it's somebody else's stuff in the kitchen, doesn't matter. Go pick it up.
Yes.
You know, it's really coming from that shift of lens of go and nourish the soil with the seeds that you genuinely want to see grow.
That one.
And that redirected my energy in its entirety. And it became an opportunity to serve more. And from that place of service to the ones that I care with my whole heart and soul, all of a sudden the suffering ended. Mm-hmm. It was like a light switch. It just turned off. Mm-hmm. And I love the interdependency of we do need each other.
Mm-hmm. We're needy motherfuckers. It's okay. We're needy as fuck, and that's just what it is. We can call it interdependent, codependent. You know, there's layers and different levels of psychology that can break those words down, but like we need each other. We actually cannot function without other human beings on any level.
I was standing in the kitchen this morning with Rachel, and she came in, and I was just having like the appreciation for those with loving hearts just goes even exponentially through the roof, and it's another gift that presents itself throughout this experience. And when Rachel came in and she, you know, had picked up some groceries on the way for me, and I was like, would you like me to make you breakfast? And I just turned to her and I was like, I need you in my life, and I'm really wishing this not to come from a codependent place, but like, thank you. Yeah. Like my appreciation for you right now is through the roof. I mean, it has been since the moment we started working together, but like it's in these moments of being humbled, going to a deep place of listening, checking in with oneself, and recognizing like those that are around that have their heart on their sleeve, that's so willing to love, are the most, for me, some of the most important things ever of being human. Mm-hmm. And recognizing that every single person is going to go through a moment of wilt, and every single person is going to go through a moment of bloom. And usually on the flower bush, there's one that's in bloom and one that's in wilt. Mm-hmm. Now, the one that's in wilt is definitely no less sacred than the one that's in bloom. Right. But it's recognizing that through the cycles of nature, through the cycles of life, the internal cycle system, there's going to be times when one of us are going to drop. Mm-hmm. Okay. So she's not less evolved or less spiritual or less anchored in a practice or less anything. She's just in a natural cycle of the winter as if the other flower is in summer.
Yep.
And so it's recognizing of, okay, well, how can we support the one in wilt? Mm-hmm. And then recognize that the one in wilt will eventually bloom. Mm-hmm. And then the other one will wilt. Mm-hmm. And there will be a humbling if the one in bloom didn't help the one in wilt, when the one is in wilt and not in bloom anymore. And so recognizing of like, can I take this pedestaling, elitism, evolved, woke mentality that comes with also walking the spiritual path, or the conscious community, and to allow us to equal the playing field and come bring all of our wounds to the altar. Mm-hmm. And with those that can accept those wounds as much as they accept our light, then utilize these spaces as a place of being able to re-anchor ourselves when we lose our own way. Mm-hmm. And it's a must on this path. It's like, it's the lifeline. It's like, you know, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the game show, and you've got like 3 lifelines, like community or like-minded individuals that love all sides of you in the sacred shit and the sacred celebration. Mm-hmm. It's a lifeline.
Lifeline, major lifeline. I like that we're calling them lifelines too. We got like individual practice and reparenting of your inner children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of work from therapy to coaching to deep psychological processes on how to interact with your inner children. So you can look those up. And then second is like community, like deep friendships, intimacy, moments to share your shit as much as your shine, right? Moments of celebration and moments of like rage circles and grief circles and the process, like you said, of seasons, starting to see our emotions as seasons or as waves. When I was going through this recent grief cycle, in a day, I could go through like 12 different waves of like feeling fine and then feeling horrible and then feeling like everything's okay and then feeling like what the point is, the point anyways, you know? So just knowing that our emotions, our energy and motion are waves. And we're learning how to be a sailor on the waves rather than jump in the ocean when there's a storm and be like, oh, it's taking me. Well, yes, there's a lot of waves, but maybe stay on the ship, right? Like stay on your rising ritual, stay on your morning practice, stay connected to your people as much as you can. So many of us have abandonment wounds, myself included. So the tendency is to like turtle off, right? And like, I'll fix this. And when I'm good, I'll come back to my community, right? This is a very, again, externalized kind of capitalistic colonizer model of let me fix myself. And when I look good or feel good or have something to offer, then I'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
And if we really want to deconstruct, if we really want to decolonize, we have to go to this root of a lie that we've been told through the Catholic Christian paradigm that we are all sinners, that we were born ugly, that we were born wrong. Right? That's the ultimate abandonment wound that we as humanity are navigating. The colonizer Christian mentality that we were born in sin and that we need someone or something to save us. The distinction in community is when we start to challenge that of like, no, I was actually born perfect, whole, and complete. And I go to my community in order to celebrate that. And when I don't feel that, they're there to reflect it back to me. The basis of colonization was fueled by the religion of Catholicism and Christianity with that base abandonment wound of we are all sinners born in need. When we as human beings believe that, we will spend the rest of our lives trying to prove that we're good enough so that we don't burn forever in hell. And I say that entre comillas, like with air quotes, because whatever the version of that is for you, even if you weren't raised Catholic and Christian, if you speak and understand English, you are living in a colonizer Christian Catholic paradigm. The English language was born from the basis of measuring Catholicism and Christianity throughout the Western Empire. So to understand that English basics is our basic economy and our basic spirituality, as soon as we use this language, we are within a paradigm that measures us knowing that we were already born shit. So the very language structure that we're working with is the shackles that we're like climbing to get out of. That's the conundrum. This is why I love song and sounds outside of language, right? Why I'm obsessed with language as a linguist, but I'm also a sound healer in the sense of like, oh, there's something beyond the words that can touch something that isn't in shackles to that paradigm yet. This is why I love plant medicine, because it gets us beyond the conscious thinking process into those other than conscious realms to access things that we cannot access with the shackles of our conscious language-oriented mind. So these spaces, and there's many others, dance is another great way to access this outside of language. Breath work, any sort of conscious breath. Touch, physical touch with another, physical touch with yourself. Nature, as my number one teacher, I would say is the third lifeline in all of this.
I was going to ask you, but you got right
You
to it.
know,
What's the
I got to
third
bring her in
lifeline,
every
Marie?
time. Gaia's the bitch that I only talk to. That individual practice, having a spiritual practice, breath, sound, movement, touch, prayer, mantra, your cards, the Bible, whatever works for you as the metaphor, right? We're talking about accessing the infinite through iterations. Whatever iteration works for you to access the infinite, I don't fucking care. Do you? If it's the cherry blossom, if it's Muhammad, if it's Lily, if it's ayahuasca, if it's your toenails, whatever gets you into that space where you remember that you are all things and no things, do that. For me, it's shifted so many times. I've been Baha'i, I've been Christian, I've been Buddhist, I've been nothing, I've been on the Dharma path, I've been on the yoga path, I've been on the ayahuasca path. I've tried over 17 different religions in my lifetime, and there's two things that are the same about all of them. They're all the same, and they're all right, and they're all wrong. All of them are a piece of the bigger picture. All of them are arrows pointing to the infinite, but none of them are the infinite. If we stop at the arrow and we forget where it's pointing, we get a little distracted, right? So within your individual practice, my invitation to you would be to choose an iteration, but don't beloved yourself to it. The beloved is the infinite that can never be defined, can never be named. God, Goddess, I am, infinite one behind the sun that I cannot even put a name to. As soon as you put a name to the Tao, it is no longer the Tao. Mm-hmm. As soon as you call God, God, it's no longer Yahweh, right? Whether it's Hebrew or the Tao Te Ching, they're telling us as soon as you get to that arrow and you say, I've got the arrow, you're actually not looking in the direction that the arrow is pointing. As soon as you tell me you have the way, I know you're one of the most lost people in the room. So I'm watching spiritual influencers. I'm watching these supposed gurus. I'm watching these supposed people climb the industrial capitalist Instagram ladder with this torch of I know, K-N-O-W, while the witches over here in the mystery schools who've been hanging out for the past 10,000 years are like, we still don't know, G-N-O-W, gnosis. We still don't know. The whole point is to not know and to sit in the unknowing and to orgasm in the place that we are infinite beings having a finite experience in a finite container. And if we keep making ourselves finite, we miss the whole point. Nature is the best place to remember this. She is eternal. She lives and dies in every moment. Every time she's breathing, she's exhaling simultaneously. There's no hierarchy. The loss of the jaguar is just as sad as loss of the blue whale, is just as sad as loss of the monarch caterpillar, is just as sad as the loss of the honeybee. If we lose the mosquito on the planet, the entire human species dies. There is no hierarchy in nature. We need them all simultaneously. We need them all we need them, not want. Codependent, interdependent, I don't care what kind of, we're dependent as fuck on every creature and every breath and every butterfly flap that exists in that space. So it's this equal playing field. We've got preferences, right? Like, oh, I like this big tree versus like this prickly bush, right? Like I prefer these juicy berries to these poisonous ones. Like there are human and sentient preferences around nature. But at the end of the day, we're always in nature, whether you're in an urban environment or you're in like what we call nature. Like look at the sky. It's still, you breathing air. Guess what? You're in nature. You're a mammal. Guess what? You're nature. Surprise! The seasons and the cycles and life and death is happening in our gut. We have over 7 trillion citizens just in our body, from our cells to bacteria to yeast to all the different things happening in our body. You want ecology? You want to study something? Go inside your own body. That's nature too. So whether people are like, oh, I live in the trees or I live in the city, like if you're doing any amount of conscious internal work, you're in nature every day. And the remembrance of nature is we're always living, we're always dying, there's nothing to know, there's everything to learn, and we can never get to the destination because it is a destinationless journey, and the whole point is to enjoy it as much as possible with gratitude, orgasm, and deviance. God, every step of the way. It's fun.
Oh, this is so good to bask in the waters of your channel. So delicious. And to reflect again on my personal, the 3-step process of like, we're right on the same page. Yeah. What I decided to do was go for a hike in the forest. I find the furthest point up the top of the mountain where no people would pass by. I put a blanket on the floor and I laid on the floor for hours staring inside the center of a dewdrop and realized how my issues are so insignificant. And the perfection of the majesty of the planet in which we inhabit, and allowing the true nature to be reconnected in nature, and a recalibration process of what it even means just to lay on the earth and to reconnect. And so those 3 steps, those 3 lifelines, when the sacred shit swirls on in and you find yourself in the middle of it, and it's not an if, it's a when, these things just start to pop up. Yeah. Is to be the mother and the father of one's own experience, and to really nourish and nurture the inner child, the compassion, the love, as if a child has burnt herself and, you know, your daughter's like touched the stove and it's hot and comes running to mama. Mama ain't gonna turn to her and be like, what the fuck are you doing?
You so dumb. I told you.
You are so unworthy. What are you? How can anyone love you? Like, that's literally the last thing you would ever say to your daughter, hopefully. And Yeah, this is so natural to speak to ourselves like this.
Yes.
When, oh, you fucked up, you've done it again, you should have done better. And it's in those moments, it's in the divine intervention, the interjection in those moments and in those spaces of going, you know what, I'm going to love myself like I would if my little daughter had just touched the stove and it's hot and she's burning and she wants mama to hold her.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold myself in those moments. I'm
Yeah.
going to love and caress and take care and be tender and sweetly. And then the second piece, our tribe, our community, those weirdos, the wild ones, the wacky ones, the witches, the wizards, the sages, the everything in between, those that have dared to walk the untrodden path and have dared to truly do whatever it takes to find their own unique dharma against the grain and to actually allow us to find the existential kink and the bliss within that space. Those individuals that are so willing to love you in that full spectrum, the full essence of who you are, the dark side of the moon, the light side of the moon, and every single breath in between. Yeah. And to be able to find our true north when we have lost our own way in the reflection of those that truly unconditionally love us. And so that being number 2, and number 3, to find our true nature in nature and to remember that right outside of our front door, even if we just get a lick of sun on our face, it's an incredible way to boost our serotonin levels, reconnect us with our heart, remember our why before we start running, and to silence ourselves enough to be able to hear the whispers of the frequencies of the thing that is our actual true navigational tool, which is our heart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It's that simple.
And just to circle back to reminding all of you just what I shared before too is it's that simple and it's not. Like we are still very interconnected. And the more I continue to do work and open my heart and open my body, I'm more tender, right? The distinction that I've started to notice is when someone's opinion or a story that it's usually a story that has some bit of truth in it, but then there's an exaggeration or withhold of either the context or the intention behind what I was sharing or what I was expressing in that moment. When that comes forward, to go through that process, go through an individuation of, okay, I'm self-sourcing, I'm being the mother, father to myself, I'm reaching out to those who are close to me, I'm being in nature, having that as a practice to soothe in those moments, but also having that as a practice that we do even when those moments aren't around, right? It's like taking vitamins. It builds up over time in our body, or eating good food. Like eating good food one day is great, but if you eat it every day, that will prepare us for when we're in our 50s and our 60s, we're still going to have straight spines and great skin and like moving forward. I'm turning 40 in 2 years. Like when I feel my body now versus 5 years ago, there's such a distinction. But what's so great is I've been eating great. I've been doing yoga. I have this accumulation of health in my body so that when I come forward, I feel radiant. I feel strong. It's the same thing for our internal processes. These aren't practices. These aren't suggestions that we're giving that you do once. Like don't take fluorescence and then be like, I did that. I'm good, right? You don't go to the gym once and like, I've got muscles. Yay. It's literally a daily accumulation of what it is that is our response to the world around us, right? So our morning practice is working our nervous system, working our heart, working our wombs, working our bodies to be able to open and receive and also hold discernment spaces. To know our valence electrons. We're going to do a little chemistry 101 here. Valence electrons in the center is your nucleus. Most electrons have anywhere between 3 and 17 rings outside of it called valences. The ones that are closest to the neurons and the protons, which is your nucleus, are going to be affecting the atom the most versus the ones that are on the outside. Those ones can be interchanged with other electrons much quicker. What we want to think of ourselves as is our nucleus and our protons, our neutrons, that's our positivity and our neutral spaces. The electrons are the things that are going to be influencing our mind, our heart, and our body in other ways. So in my center is me. That's the most important relationship, my relationship with the infinite. I call it God, gratitude, orgasm, deviance. My most important relationship in my life is my relationship to that. That is my nucleus. My first valence, my blood family. My sisters, my nephews, my mom and dad, they call me, it's unconditional. Like I fly you, I fly there, like whatever it is. The next valence are like my tight friends, family friends, the chosen family, right? Like, and this is for me. I'm not suggesting this for anyone else. I'm very close with my blood family. I wouldn't suggest this for abusive situations, but specifically within my valences. Second is my tribe family. These are like you, my ravens, my people who like, if they were to call me, I would fly to them to help them move their physical body somewhere, move someone else's body, like whatever needed to happen. Those are my next people. The next people are like my friends that I would invite to my birthday party. Good friends who like we can jam, and when we drop in, it's like deep, but I probably wouldn't text them like when I'm having a hard day, right? Like these are good friends who I trust. A thing. The next valence are like acquaintance friends. These are like people I see at other people's social gatherings. We're good. We could probably be closer friends, but it just hasn't aligned for whatever reason. The next valence are like people who are friends of the friends or fans, right? Who are kind of in that circuit of, enjoyment and play. This is also the place where I often have students. Clients are usually within 1 or 2 valence closers, depending on what kind of clients they are. And then the following ones are everyone else's opinions. And letting them exist in my reality as electrons, but not so close to the nucleus that it's going to inform what's happening in my protons and neutrons, right? They're out there and I can feel them and they have electricity, they have charge, but I'm not letting them to the level of my family or my relationship with my beloved. That's the difference between allowing ourselves to be impacted by what is happening. We should listen to those comments sometimes. We should look at we should know how we are impacting the world. We are responsible not just for our intention, but also our impact. And we can't premeditate everything. We don't know how everything's going to land for everyone. But especially as women, especially as humans who have voices who are choosing to utilize them, it is our responsibility to decolonize, decapitalize, and elitize our process. It is our responsibility, but we can't know everything until sometimes we make an impact that's, oof, we stepped on someone's toes, or oof, we stepped on someone's heart, or oof, we stepped on someone's culture. So it's not about shutting everything out, fuck everyone off, cutting them out. I really am challenged by the memes that are like, if they're not for you, just cut them out. Like, just fuck everybody. That to me is sociopathic, and I don't encourage that. Just take them out of valence. If that electron is close to you and starting to take more energy than it's actually giving into your life, just pop them out of valence and allow them to still exist in your field, but just give yourself that discernment. We can pop people in and out of our valences as much as we like. This is called conscious relating. When I decide to relate to my people, not just because you're in my field, but because we have an intention of intimacy as a way to support each other, because we are magnetic leaders on this planet. So we are in our friendship because we know that we can support each other, and our intention is to bring energy to each other. And as soon as we start to siphon energy, we'll talk about it, right? So that's the play with that metaphor of valence electrons and allowing ourselves to expand and inhale. And for me, like, I have my immediate family, my tribe family, I'm solid with like 30 good people, right? Like, I can name 30 good people that I would ride or fly right now. Within like my good friends, I'm solid with like max 100. Like, that's still a lot for me. After that, it's more of like the social media realms or the digital realms. But like, to know that I really only am affected by about 30 people's opinions of me in the core, maybe 100 if I really wanted to have like a council forum with my closest. Oh, I really only am needing to be concerned with 30 people's opinion of me. Well, that sizes down this idea that Blue is getting attacked in this newspaper in a very different frame, right? When someone posts something about me or my past or what I have done or how I've said, if they're not in my top 30, I kind of in the space of like, you're in those outer valence electrons. I might ask one of my top 30 to read it and ask if there's anything of truth for me to reflect on. I may not even read it myself. I may be like, hey, there's this thing that came out. So-and-so posted it and it refers to me. Would you mind looking at it and really letting me know if there's anything for me to chew on here? That kind of leadership is extremely vulnerable. And the only way that we can move forward if we don't want to keep activating narcissism within ourselves, which says that one leader has to have all of the answers and be the shining example and be the Jesus Christ savior of the world. As soon as we say that that's even possible for humanity and we're all trying to reach that, you see the battle of the narcissists happening. So
Do you believe,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you believe that Jesus Christ was a narcissist, or that we projected that narcissistic pedestaling on him, but actually his intention was to even the playing field?
When I meditate on the words of Jesus, I can feel the frequency of unconditional love. I can feel the frequency and intention of that. And yet, John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, might be one of the most narcissistic things anyone has ever said ever. And that was Jesus. So both and, was it a real human? I don't really know. That might be for a whole other podcast based on some of my research that I've done in the Middle East. But what I do know is that as soon as we start to pedestalize any human being and take their words of iterations, remember we have the infinite up here, and then we have iterations of the infinite, which are angels and demons, Isis, the goddess, and Osiris, Jesus Christ narrative, Latter-day Saints narrative, J-Dub narrative, Buddhist narrative. Those are iterations of the infinite. As soon as we start to take the iterations literally, they are immediately at war with each other. If we take the iterations as poetry and metaphor, we can all live symbiotically. The answer is art, seeing Christianity as art, seeing Buddhism as art, seeing Islam as art. When we see it as art and not as the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father except through me. When any religion takes on John 14:6 as its literal piece, it becomes a tool of war immediately. When we can see the Quran or the Dharma Path or the Tao Te Ching written by artists for artists, as we all are as human beings, then we can live symbiotically. And that is what the witches have been talking about for 10,000 years. We can all live together if we remember all of it is art, all of it is iterations that will never reach the infinite, but point to the infinite. And if you stop at the iteration, you will miss the whole point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can already feel the comment section on YouTube. When you said that, I was like, oh, here it goes. Yeah. Here it comes. However, you know, in the light of the Deja Blu podcast, specifically Reverend Briana Lynn, like I said at the intro, it's not that, you know, that we're going to just cover sort of like really light-hearted, basic expressions. I was saying to Brianna, let's call you Rev then, just for a second. Rev.
That's cute.
I like it.
Rev's the end.
Yeah, actually, it's
Totally.
if the name fits.
Rev her up.
I was like, you know, it would be so much easier to talk about lipstick shades on YouTube. I mean, like, it's beautiful videos. They're very educational in the sense of lipstick shades. But it's so much easier, essentially.
Less potential for like projection into what's important to my soul, right? Because when we share lipstick shades, like I'm not that emotionally connected to, so if you attack my lipstick shade, what the fuck ever, you're my outer valence, no big deal. When I'm sharing, when you're sharing, this is our soul. This is our truth as we know it now. It can change. It will change. What I'm saying now probably won't be relevant in 24 hours. I don't fucking know. It might be relevant forever. I don't know. But for me, I've given myself the artistic permission to be art. I am not an artist. I am the art. I am not an artist. I am the art. So everything I say can be framed and looked at as like, oh, that was interesting art for that time, and look at it critically for sure. Criticize me all day long. Go for it. From critical thinking, the actual Socratic method of argument, come at me, bitches. I'm ready for you. But if you're going to attack me as a human being because of the art that I'm expressing now, let's take Art 101 and remember what critical thinking and feedback for art actually is. It's looking at it from your perspective, understanding we have distinct perspectives, naming your perspective, and then finding a place where we overlap and finding the places that are distinct, celebrating both of those. That's what art theory is. And we all need to take Art Theory 101 just to be able to function as human beings. Emotional intelligence, basic emotional intelligence language, Art Theory 101, and religion as art. Kindergarten, in my opinion.
It's your opinion.
Kindergarten. That's all we should be doing in kindergarten. Just making art and remembering everything's art. You can't be wrong in art. You can't be wrong. It can be unuseful. It could be harmful, but it actually can't be wrong. And once we start to remember that we live in a relative universe, everything is relative. Everything is about how we frame it. Context isn't everything. Framing it is everything.
That is what I was referring
Yes.
to. Because without the frame, the value of the art can't fully be received.
No.
And so for me, for example, like the Gene Keys has been a frame to allow the art to live through.
Yes.
otherwise it's like a sprinkling system and it kind of just like,
Mm-hmm.
but like when it's actually focused, then all of a sudden water cuts glass, you know, it's like, it's so powerful. Yeah.
This is the inner alchemy, right? This is what we were talking about. This is the alchemical marriage. It is the masculine frame, what has been deemed the masculine. I don't fucking care what you call it. The yang energy, the glass, and the yin, the feminine, the juice is the water that you pour in the glass. Water on the table, not super useful. Just a glass, not super useful. But when they're together, you can drink that shit and hydrate your body. It's amazing, right? That is art. Art is the framing of something that is infinite, ephemeral, and can never be spoken. Framed in a moment so we can appreciate touching infinity through one of its iterations. It is the marriage within that makes us an artist of life.
I am not an artist, I am the art. Yeah. I see that as a quote crowd.
T-shirts, maybe.
There's so much to extract here. Wow. I always feel like when I do a podcast with you, I have to definitely go back and watch it when I'm like not sitting in this chair, so that I can actually like pause the video, take some notes, reconnect, see how it relates to my own personal life, continue to be in the inquiry of like, where can I show up even more in alignment while also holding compassion for the awareness that I had at the time that I had, and I did my best, and also there's always better that I can do moving forward, and extract the wisdom, integrate it into my being, and then continue to move through life. Because in real time in the conversation, Rev, like we're like, I'm like, whoa, she's revving. Yeah. And it really, like I said again at the beginning of the podcast, it's like you have the capacity of completely breaking down how we relate to certain things, and actually even just asking, when did I start believing that? Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of the belief systems, a lot of the way that we relate to ourselves, a lot of the way that we relate to the world, a lot of the way that we relate to great religions actually didn't start with us, and we've never really fully questioned the why behind, why do I say certain things? Why do I have these certain lingos?
Yes.
Why do I
this is the deviance. Yes. Question. Yes.
So essentially, I guess, could you just break down the word deviant to me? Like you said, like what the essence of a deviant, but like what does deviant mean?
Yeah. This is great. So it's a pretty neutral word that has gotten some charge over time, but to deviate means like we're on a path, and to deviate means to go off the path. It literally is just like, oh, I'm on this thing. Everyone's kind of walking, and I see the trees over there, and everyone's just going to walk on the road. Okay, I'm going to go over into the trees. And the fear that has been instilled to us as human beings, as deviants, is we're migratory mammals. If you deviate from your migration group, you're gonna die. Like, you're gonna get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. You're gonna get ran over by a mastodon. Another tribe might rape you and take you in or kill you. We don't know. Deviance has been seen as dangerous because it has been for a long time. The part where deviance started to be a tool, and is still a tool, is when there is our limbic system, our animal brain wants to belong. And the beauty of that is closeness and intimacy. The challenge of that is groupthink, or a term that is used in deconstructing cult ideology around when a group of people believe something and you enter into that group of people, the probability that if you're thinking something different from them, that you're going to be able to convince them if they are 3 or more people is very low. So to be a deviant in a group is actually understanding that we have survival programming, and that's going to go off when you start to deviate, like I am in danger, even if no one's reflecting that to you. So to be a deviant is to understand that we're going to have survival programming that goes off, and that we're willing to question. It doesn't mean to immediately tell people they're wrong, or to say the way you're doing that is horrible, or you're a patriarchal asshole racist. That's actually not what deviance is. Deviance is, what you're saying there feels interesting in my body. Can I ask you more questions about that? It's actually more deviant to be subtle than to immediately go into full contrarian. A rebel is someone who understands deviance. A contrarian is someone who just looks at the image, judges it, and then runs to the opposite side. A rebel is someone who takes deviance as a form of art, who says, I see a pattern within our society around groupthink that is harmful to the people who are thinking it and harmful to everyone else. When the majority thinks in this form of groupthink, for example, racism, When people believe that their skin color gives them points up on the social, political, economic, educational forums, that type of groupthink is harmful to them as well as to all of the people that they regard as less than them. It eats away at your humanity. So to question that groupthink is deviance from that group and is vital in order for us to be able to evolve. The way species have evolved over time was there was a deviant creature who said, hey, it would be cool if we could walk on land. I'm a fish. I'm just going to lay on these rocks for a few minutes and then come back in the water, and then lay on the rocks for a few minutes and then come back in the water. And then when that fish mated, their cells and their DNA had reorganized to just integrate maybe 0.0001% of externalized oxygen out of the water. So when they mated and had another little spawn of fish, those fish had the tendency to maybe be out of the water a little bit more. Over thousands of years, that deviance changed the fish into a walking salamander, changed it into an ape, changed it into human beings. Deviance is nature's code of experimentation. As artists, it's vital that we experiment without an attachment to an outcome that we desire. It's vital as artists that we make things that we don't find to be beautiful. It's vital as human beings that we try things just for the experience of it without being attached to the destination, because that's what brings us joy. That's what brings us orgasm or aliveness. That's what brings us to our edge, for the very reason of just trying it out. Just my intuition encourages me to go here. It's that form of deviance that specifically questions groupthink around what could be potentially harmful for that group is what I'm speaking about. So there are forms of deviance and there are forms of going off the path that I don't particularly encourage that can cause more harm. I'm talking about specifically when the group is thinking in a direction and there isn't anyone questioning that direction, and that direction could potentially cause harm to that group. That is when we need to be deviants more than anything, is when a group of people are thinking something using thought-terminating cliches and otherizing other human beings or sentient beings. It's important that we start asking questions. We don't know what we're doing. That's the greatest thing about the deviant. We don't know what we're doing. Can we all acknowledge that we don't know what we're doing? If a group has to know what they're doing and has such an attachment to the outcome, the likelihood that they're going to cause harm in that process goes up a lot. When the deviants are allowed to exist and allowed to question not just what we're doing, but how we're doing it, that's how we have a healthy society, is when we integrate the deviants rather than ostracize them. Question everything. Question me. Question everything I've said. Take everything I've said with a grain of salt. Live it yourself. Go out and live life yourself. The best thing a deviant can do is run experiments and find out about that philosophy for yourself. You believe in meditation? That's bullshit. Have you embodied it? Have you practiced it? Has it changed your life? You can't believe in a God. Has praying to that God made you a better person in the world around you? That's the question of the deviant. I don't care what you think or believe. How do you embody it, and how do you treat the people, nature, the environment around you distinctly because of those beliefs or identities? The deviant wants to get to experience rather than concept.
And that is basically summing up the whole of the Deja Blu podcast.
Yeah.
In the sense of bringing people into this space as deviant individuals that have gone out and experimented with many different experiences and have recognized, just like the hummingbird, where they received their nectar. And then from that place have shared it on the golden hands.
Yeah,
like, this is what supported me in my life. Having a soul family, to be the mother and the father of my own experience, to go out and spend time in nature. I'm a significantly better individual because I have done A, B, and C, and it has changed my neural pathways, which has allowed me to love you more. And so this is what has supported me from an embodied place. And that is essentially what this podcast is about, and I continue to put emphasis on, please do not take this as the truth. Do not become followers. To absorb, integrate, become that resonates, and then share. And then share. And that is the most important piece, is that it evens the playing field. It takes somebody off the top that has the answers. And it allows us to recognize that we are an expression of the beloved, of spirit, of that cannot be named in a physical being. And our responsibility is to find or activate / remember what it is that actually allows ourselves to love as much as we possibly can. And from that place, share it, inspire, and most importantly, embody. But the second that there's a pedestal thinking that you, any of my previous guests, me, or anyone we see online, anyone we see on television, anyone we see on YouTube, our parents, that they have the answer and have access to something that we do not, is continuing to feed the imbalances on the planet, the pedestaling, the pyramid system. It lives within ourselves. And then when we continue to deconstruct it and recognize it, whatever has been shared today, let it sit in your body. How does it feel in your body? How does it make your breathing feel? Are you nodding your head or are you angry? Because both of those are telling you something about yourself, not about Briana, not about me, not about any of the previous guests. It is all information to learn a little bit more about who we are and a little bit more to access the deviant within ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is actually what makes this world so beautiful, is there's such a wide range of expressions.
So good.
You know, if we were all the same, if we all believed exactly the same thing, there wouldn't be all of the flavors, all of the textures, all of the smells, all of the diversity of what it truly means to be alive. And just like you said, in nature, the jaguar and the whale, there is no difference in their importance. They are both imperative to the ecosystem of this planet. And just like no matter what skin color or what expression, your heart and your deviant nature is of equal importance as somebody that has a different perspective and a different viewpoint, because actually it is all part of the ecosystem and it is sacred because it is, and it's serving a purpose. And so there's so much beauty and there's so much permission and there's also so much destruction within this same conversation. And there is an invitation into a level of empowerment here of, if you don't agree, that's okay.
That's okay.
We
Permission
don't
to
need to
not
tear
agree. Permission to be a deviant. Permission to deviate from our deviance. We're not here proselytizing in the way of like, think what we think. We're proselytizing in the way of like, just think, just feel. Like whatever it is a good thing. If you're thinking, if you're feeling, if you're having a orgasmic, alive, a responsive response to life, that is a good thing, especially because a lot of humans right now on our planet are walking around trying to feel less. If you have a feeling response to anything that we've said ever, that's the whole point. The point isn't to get followers. The point isn't to just make money. We can make money from what we're doing, but that's not the point. The point is, at least I don't want to speak for you fully, to live our life as the most authentic, joyful, radical, chaotic art that the world has ever seen in the expression of me as it expresses now in this moment. That's it. And if that activates you, great. But you yelling at a Monet in the museum isn't going to make it change. You go to the next one, it's completely different than that one, right? Depending on where he was at and how much drugs he was doing, his paintings are completely different. So too, we as influencers, we are art. Do not see us as a philosophy you have to follow. Do not see us as spiritual leaders that need to be right about anything. Those are all names that have been placed on us. The most important thing is that you feel alive in what you're doing and you are moved by the vision that you have within yourself. Not my vision, not Vladimir Putin's vision, not Trump's vision, not Jesus Christ's vision, not anyone else's vision for your life, yours for you. And when we activate that and when we really feel that, there is simultaneously an excitement and a peace that cannot be touched. That is invincibility of like, I have my vision. I have this little light of mine on the inside. And whatever anyone says and whatever anyone does is going to be a reflection of them and their relationship to fear and love in that moment.
And it just so happens to be Briana's life's work in the Gene Keys.
It's true.
Invincibility. For the gift of determination.
It's true.
Oh, she's determined.
Very.
Rev.
She revs all the way up the mountain, all the way.
Well, today's episode was tamales. Briana, for those that are like, holy shit, shit, I want to continue to follow this woman, follow being on Instagram, but please follow your own heart, to be able to find you through social media and through your platforms, what is the best way to find you?
It's a great question. I'm mostly on Instagram at Rev Briana Lynn, 1 N, 2 N's. And theearthtemple.com is the website where you can find most of our creative work. And we're opening a membership portal in February for people to be able to come and get content from yours truly and a few other of our facilitators. So I'm excited about it.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for bringing your wisdom and your fierceness and your grace and your embodiment and your sisterhood and your love. And the timing of this podcast, but of course, is immaculate and has allowed me to be able to take a deep breath and to continue to be the mother and the father of my own experience, but also with the way that you've articulated certain concepts has given me really something to chew on. And ultimately, that's really what I look for in any form of content, is something of really substance to chew on. And this is like nutrient dense chewing time.
Yay.
Thank you.
So happy
I love you.
that. I love you. You're welcome. And it's an honor to be here. Thank you for welcoming me back.
All right, you beautiful humans. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Deja Blu podcast. If you resonated with today's episode and you feel like it could be supportive to share this with your loved ones or people that you're in your immediate circle or your extended circle or the circle outside of that, because we've learned that there's multiple circles, then please go ahead and share it. Also share it on your Instagram story so that we can reach more of an audience than we can individually. Yes. And please remember, like we just said at this podcast, that this is the empowerment piece for the deviant within you to really be activated and recognize that, yes, it may be in your immediate environment that you are the only deviant, but please know that you are joining forces with millions of people around the planet that are choosing to actually go, you know what? I don't subscribe to that. That doesn't feel good. That feels like separation. That feels like division. I'm going to start learning from a new path. And actually, there are millions of people that are also doing the same thing. So you're not in this alone. And recognizing that your deviant nature is actually the very thing that is going to help us as evolve as a species, because it's the artists that pioneer the leading edge of the direction that we're going in for a future that we don't even know about yet. We don't even know what it even looks like, but we can feel it. There's a remembrance that is happening. There is a remembrance that is being activated within our hearts and with our souls. As this planet evolves, the frequency is shifting, and the frequency within and therefore without. And so we are seeing systems crumble, but we are also seeing beautiful flowers grow in the cracks. And so allow that flower to be activated in the fluorescence of your heart, and to remember to check in with your body and your heart and your soul of what is your truth. And from that place, that is where we walk forward. Until next week, thanks for tuning in.